Hillary has been lengthening her excuses as to why she lost the election. She didn't really lose the election. It was stolen from her by, I think it's up to 24 different excuses she has now. Number 24 is content farms in Macedonia. And as I said, my grandfather was a Macedonian content farmer, and we often think about, gathering on the porch and recalling the old days on the Macedonian he never thought that the old content farmers he left behind in Macedonia would one day steal the U.S. presidential election. They are gnarled, hard-working Macedonian peasants, and the way they were able to reach out and steal...
My name is Jason Miko, coming to you from the foot of Vodno Mountain in Skopje, the Republic of Macedonia.
And this is Cvetin and Jason, also in Skopje, Macedonia. Jason, what are you doing here?
What am I doing here? You know what? That is what the customs officer asked me when I flew in the other day.
Smart guy.
Sorry?
Smart guy.
Smart guy, yeah. Well, the first thing he said was, where are you going? Skopje. Then he says, why are you here? And for a moment, I was taken aback because I thought, well, what do you mean, why am I here? And then I remembered, okay, we're in the middle of a pandemic, so sure, legitimate question. What are you doing here in the middle of a pandemic? But then I just answered him honestly. I said, I'm here to visit family and friends because it's Christmas.
Not stir up trouble, not begin a revolution.
Well, I didn't promise not to do that. I didn't promise not to do that. So, I just said, I'm here for I should have added New Year's as well, Christmas and to visit. And that's the reason I come. I don't come to Macedonia, especially at this time of year, for the weather. I don't come here to see places in Macedonia because I've already been everywhere multiple times. I've been to more places in Macedonia than most Macedonians.
I can confirm.
Yes, yeah, we've had that discussion. Kratovo. And so I'm coming here to visit, So it is good to be here. It's excellent to be here. Just to kind of, again, see family, see friends, take the proverbial pulse and see what's going on. It's always a bit difficult trying to juggle schedules and whatnot, especially when you've got holidays and people need to be with their families and everything else, and that's completely understandable. And then you throw in the pandemic as well. Yeah. And it's just kind of, but I'm managing. And then, of course, I'm still actually doing work with the PR firm I work with back home. So that means, Zoom calls at 7 p.m. local time here that I have to get on or things like that. Although this week there won't be any on at least Wednesday and Thursday for Bodnik and Christmas. I will invoke my religious freedoms as a Macedonian Orthodox and say I will not be doing Zoom calls during these
First
times.
Amendment.
Exactly, right. So anyway, but other than that, yes, that's a long answer to your short question and to the customs agent's question as to why am I here, what am I doing, and anyway, it's great to be with you to record the Macedonian Content Farmers Podcast, episode 97. We're recording this on Monday, January 4, 2021. Happy New Year.
Get it confused. Happy New Year to all our listeners.
Yes. Tomorrow, of course, even though I'm here in Macedonia, I'm still paying attention to what's going on in the States. Tomorrow is the special election, or the runoff election, I should say, in Georgia for 2 Senate seats, which will determine control of the United States Senate. And then in 16 days, Joe Biden, theoretically, will be inaugurated as the next president of the United States for a few months or maybe a year before Kamala becomes the next president of the United States. Although, of course, before that, on January 6th, we have to have the actual counting of the electoral votes in the House and the Senate. And there's issues around that. But bottom line is that Joe Biden's going to be the president unless something happens, of course, before that.
Potential Trump insurrection in D.C. on, what's it now, on the 6th?
The 6th, yeah. So, yeah. So there's all that to follow. But then, of course, my main purpose is just to be here and visit family and friends. And how are you doing?
Yeah, doing fine.
Okay.
Hanging on here, avoiding shopping malls, avoiding large gatherings, avoiding pretty much everything.
Well, actually, on that, here's a legitimate question. Interesting thought. Obviously, during the Christmas holidays in the States, Amazon stock went through the roof because everybody's using Amazon because nobody wanted to go to the malls.
Really made a lot of money on that one.
So
Bitcoin.
Yeah, but internet shopping here in Macedonia, have businesses caught on to providing goods, primarily goods online that you can go and order and then have it shipped to you?
Food,
or
yes,
pick up?
And people are advertising a lot online, but then, you still need to... Well, yeah, they're connecting then I would say mostly Facebook advertising, presenting your stuff on Facebook. Maybe that's the biggest thing.
Right. But can you go on to the Vero or Tinex website and order food and then come and pick it up?
Not yet.
Not yet.
You can order like pizzas and sandwiches. And,
Yeah.
like Uber Eats stuff, but
Right.
not like the groceries. Not yet.
Right. Okay. Well, and again, today's Monday, and this is a holiday week. We have Christmas Eve, Badnik, and Christmas coming up, so people are preparing for that, going to the grocery shopping and getting all the foods. Although this is going to be the most unusual Christmas ever, there's limitations on how many people can gather at home. I'm not sure how they're going to enforce that. We've seen this in other countries. I think the one I was looking at was in the UK, and certain U.S. states that are led by governors who are lockdown enthusiasts, threatening to send the police to make sure that nobody is enjoying their Christmas.
It was relatively good here. They set up a stool pigeon hotline for people to inform on their neighbors for New Year, and they would the police would call people who would offer, like, I'm renting my vacation home for the New Year, and in the end, only 22 people called the hotline to report on their neighbors, which was, a feel-good moment. People said, okay, well, maybe we're not that horrible and willing to spy on our neighbors for the Zaev's police state.
Good.
So, it was just 22 people. Police was out in force.
Mm-hmm.
So the bars, the restaurants, they were ordered to close by 6 in the evening.
Right.
And police was driving around and checking. Mm-hmm. So that's why everybody who wanted to have a party moved into apartments, and that's why the hotline, but it largely failed. So there was one incident in a bar they wouldn't close, and the police, went there. They started, having brawling with the police, and it turns out it was obviously one of Zaev's advisors who was doing this, and obviously he was not mentioned in the
Of course not.
police report. Everybody else was cited, but he was left out. The guy who Zaev just appointed as head of one of the prisons in Skopje, one of the big prisons in Skopje. So that was the extent of the incidents for New Year. And then Albanians, bless them, they've been busy for New Year. They were, and the new thing they do is they TikTok whatever they do, whatever stupid thing they do. So there was several guys shooting and filming themselves, guns, Kalashnikovs. One had like a 6-7-year-old child. He was holding the pistol in the child's hand, and he was shooting. He was having his son shoot in the air, and then posted this on TikTok. And he was obviously, there is a dedicated Twitter account now to Albanians misbehaving on TikTok, and the police, to their credit, are acting, and they had this guy arrested. So this was the celebratory part of New Year when people got in trouble. There was this guy who drove a Bentley, some kind of a drug runner from Arachinova.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, he drove a Bentley through the Christmas decorations in Skopje Square with lots of people there. He didn't mow down the decorations. There's like a archway. He drove underneath, and people were really kind of like jumping to the side. It really looked like a Islamic terror attack in Germany.
Christmas market, right? Yeah.
And he also had to put himself on TikTok, and now he is being charged. So this is the latest trend in Macedonia, doing stupid stuff on TikTok and getting arrested afterwards.
Well, all these people then should be awarded, given the Darwin Awards for their stupidity. And of course, with the gentleman from Arachinovo, you would wonder why, Ali Ahmeti and some of the other leaders of the Albanian parties there don't openly condemn this, because frankly that just gives them all a very bad name if they're going to behave like barbarians and brutes. But I don't expect them to.
No, he's the hero of Arachinova, driving a Bentley and sticking it to the police. He's there.
Yeah.
And he was cited. He was initially cited 45 euros for a Bentley driver. You can imagine. Then the police said, okay, but we're also going to press some charges, but I don't think they can do much more than the 45 euros. So here's, he ended up being a hero.
Yeah, well, Arachinovo is a well-known place for well-paying jobs, high-paying jobs, and it's a bastion of capitalism and the free market economy and whatnot. So it's perfectly understandable how this gentleman was able to purchase a Bentley, which he was then able to drive through the Blostad and the Christmas market. Well,
it's the IT jobs in Eritrea.
It's what?
The IT jobs in Eritrea. The IT industry has really grown there.
Yes. Well, I'm sure he's probably linked in somehow with the drug trade, which is a nice segue into talking a little bit more about Zoran Zaev's marijuana initiative to make marijuana usage, growing and usage, legal for recreational use, because that is the answer that Macedonia has been waiting for, is to make the entire country a marijuana field, to legalize marijuana, to invite the drug-addicted Europeans into Macedonia for a good time. Call Jenny at 8675309. And then to make everybody in Macedonia rich, isn't it?
They've become obsessed. I mean, I don't know why he's not actually just proposing it in Parliament and getting done with it. Is there some resistance in the party or what's happening here? He just keeps talking about this, and he's talking about this like almost like a crazy person by now. So, we asked them, economy is collapsing, what do we do? Well, we invest in marijuana. It's like 250 million euro business a year once we get it up and running. And here we are borrowing billions, and, this is not going to be all taxes. This is going to be, this is going to end up in pockets of the corrupt people he's inviting over to set up marijuana plantations. So, it's debatable how much benefit there is actually going to be for the country financially. But he's, after the EU vetoed Macedonia, after Bulgaria vetoed Macedonia, he held a press conference with his new initiatives. And again, the main initiative, now we are making our own individual path now that the EU is apparently not going to have a say. Again, the main point of this new plan, of this new program, again, marijuana. So it's the cure-all for the EU veto. It's the cure-all for the economic collapse. At one point, early on in the stuff, he in his campaign for legalization, Zaev even said that it helps, I think, with autism. It was some horrible disease. It was literally like snake oil salesmanship. And only thing left is for him to say, he says that it cures COVID. Single-minded focus, completely on one thing, beginning to sound crazy. We discussed in previous episodes about the crime wave, which we're having with Arachinova gangsters, Albanian gangsters robbing the plantations because the drug is grown for cannabis oil extraction, which is not very lucrative. I mean, if it's legalized, there is not much money in it, but it has a dual purpose. So if you can export it, if you can steal it and lose it, let's say, between the plantation and the extraction plant, you can then sell it on the black market, and it's going to be much more valuable. So we had to send police to storm Aracino, which is a dangerous proposition. We've lost officers there over the years.
It's got quite a reputation.
Yeah. And now he wants, Zaev says he wants to have the smoking legalized. He's giving this progressive policy sheen on the program, but bottom line is he just wants to make money for himself and his relatives who directly run businesses, and a lot of people linked to him, like crony style small businessmen from Strumica who are running the plantations, which are not directly run by the Zaev crime family. So really crazy. Every other day they have a press conference on this, and they're not doing it. They're still not putting it to vote in Parliament.
Yeah. Well, a couple of things. Number one, I would expect him to say there is no alternative to marijuana because that's his standard line. And number two, this is the other thing, and you got to look to other examples in Europe, but from my perspective in the States, and you look at Colorado, for instance, which legalized marijuana some years ago, kind of one of the leaders in the United States. And yet, you still have crime, you still have illegal growing of marijuana in Colorado, you still have all of the ills associated with an illegal marijuana, illegal marijuana growing and usage, and yet, I think the jury's still out. There are studies being done to find out what are the effects on the people that are using it. Young kids are getting their hands on it. Laws or no laws, doesn't matter. Kids are going to still get their hands on it and use it, especially if it's more plentiful. So you've got all of these issues, negative issues associated with marijuana. And is he even addressing that? Which I doubt he is. The medical field here in Macedonia, are they talking about this? Are educators talking about what this would do? What about the institutions of faith? Is anybody saying this is not a bad idea?
Not so much. How strong progressivism is. If it's painted as a progressive policy, you can't attack it. People are mostly saying, listen, but this is a crony thing. This is his own business, and he's the one issuing the licenses to himself, and now he wants to legalize it for himself. He literally, in Parliament, during question time, he literally said, once it's legalized, each household, they're going to have like free plants of marijuana, and everybody will be making money.
I'm sorry.
I'm not joking. He literally said.
So this is was it Truman or
chicken
in every pot? Yeah. Yes. 3 marijuana plants in every household.
It was
wow.
Unbelievable. So he's mostly talking about it through the financial. I mean, listen, I said it the last time. If the government is not only allowing it, but actually even encouraging it, it stops being cool, and kids are going to stop using it. And prices are going to drop if it's legalized. So then it makes a point too. But then the profits are in having it exported to Serbia, to Greece, to mainly to Italy, to Germany. And the type of people who will be doing the exporting will be the type of people who drive a Bentley through Christmas decorations on Town Square. And then you need to send police to, once they steal Zaev's shipment, possibly with his approval. So that's the type of country we're going to be building. Under Gruevski, the business development model was manufacturing plants, blue-collar jobs, steady households, men working in the plants, women working in education or whatever, and proper, normal mid-20th century, 50s, 60s economic model. Under Zaev, it's Colombia on the Balkans trying to compete with Albania, who gets to grow more drugs and smuggle it to Italy. So that's where we're going.
Well, and of course, the next step after he sees that marijuana doesn't work and whatnot, and all the ills associated with continue, then he'll make a push for hard drugs to be legalized, like Oregon has just done.
We have actually, on our coat of arms, unreformed from communist times, you can see that we have a much longer tradition of growing the poppies.
Yes.
Which are a much more significant drug than marijuana, and they're still on our coat of arms. We used to grow them until the early 60s. The communist government cracked down on this, but then, became a major player in the smuggling of heroin to Europe, so it was still grown clandestino. It's still grown for the purposes of the alkaloid plant for, painkillers. But, it's not widely known that we have like major growing or refining businesses. It's mostly grown in Afghanistan, refined in Turkey, and then smuggled through the Balkans to Germany, to the Czech Republic, and then to Germany. But, we could definitely give it a try. I mean, the principles of if it's all about the money and we need it.
Right.
And, if it's the principle of it's literally it literally has medicinal purposes, like Zaev says, but the marijuana, so, why the heck not?
So since they're busybodies, has Calais, meaning the U.S. Embassy, weighed in on any of these or any of the other embassies?
No.
Interesting.
Yeah, they're nowhere to be seen. For a while now, we haven't heard of them. Some talk about, NATO. I think they're waiting for, Biden to take over, Kamala or whoever, and then they're going to rear their ugly heads and remind us that they're still in charge.
Oh, dear. Well, I'm sorry to hear that. Well, so, again, this week is Christmas week. Parliament's not in session. They'll probably take it up next week or the week after. I know that there's issues of members of Parliament that had the China virus or don't have it, trying to get a quorum and all that. That's still, but we can expect that to be first and foremost on the government's legislative agenda for 2021. Even as, of course, the Bulgaria issue has now been kind of put on ice, so to speak, for a while. Bulgaria has parliamentary elections in late March, I believe, and I don't think we can expect any movement on that, even though, of course, Zaev is going to be talking about brotherly love and peace and unicorns farting rainbows and things of that nature in between now and then, but we don't expect any progress. Yeah. I'm using air quotes here, progress on that issue.
No, he is teeing up businesses for Bulgarians to take over. He hopes this will help bring over Boyko Borisov over, although, he probably would be doing this even without the veto. He might just say, okay, well, we had to do it like he used to say about the name, we had to change it to join NATO. Now he would say, we had to sell. Now the latest thing was the pipeline. Initially it was the copper mine, which Zaev banned and practically banned it just to kick out the Canadian company which was developing it, and now he's planning to take it over by himself or himself with the Bulgarian companies involved. And in the end he's going to say, well, listen, we had to do it because they were going to veto us. Otherwise, besides it's jobs and as we discussed about the marijuana, it's all about the money and the jobs. Consequences be damned, even though he was insisting that it's a poisonous mine. Now he had Macpetrol, the biggest gas chain in Macedonia since communist times, ran by an oligarch close to the Zaev's, close to SDSM in principle. They also owned half of the gas pipeline between Macedonia and Bulgaria, which is our only source of gas, the Gamma gas pipeline. And there's been a 15-year-long dispute between the government and Macpetrol, who owns what, and the government trying to take it over. Macpetrol won't sell it. And Zaev eventually insisted to give them a huge sum of money for this piece of infrastructure, for at least comparing previous estimates for it, 33 million euros. He overestimated their share and the value of the whole thing. And he tried to have a settlement. Government officials who are supposed to sign off on this refused. They said, we're going to prison over this. I mean, no way we're going to sign this. So then he had a lex specialis, a special law, literally saying just give the pipeline to, give 33 million to Macpetrol, and Macpetrol gives us the pipeline, their share. And Vimmer opposed this with several days of filibustering. They said this is a completely corrupt deal. And especially this is the Russian pipeline. The US is building, ostensibly, an LNG plant in Greece, and there's supposed to be a new pipeline supplying us with US approved LNG, in which case this pipeline will be completely worthless.
Right.
Anyway, we're giving a huge sum of money now to an oligarch, and who also owns Telma Television, one of the longest supporting SDSM supporting TV stations. They supported SDSM through the Colored Revolution. So now the story is that Zaev will give either the pipeline or have Macpetrol give Telma Television to a Bulgarian company, so that Boyko Borisov can say at home, listen, now we have a Bulgarian TV channel in Macedonia who puts Bulgarian interests first in their coverage. Bulgaria would often say, listen, you need to open your media market to us, even though, in theory it's open. In principle, they haven't been able to take over it or set up a TV station. Legally, there are no problems. We have a Qatari TV station, for crying out loud. But, it's very likely that he's going to give a bunch of businesses to them, mines, gas pipelines, to businesses in Bulgaria linked to Boyko, and then he's going to say, listen, we had to do it because of the veto, but in reality, he's going to make a lot of money personally out of all this.
Lovely. So let's see, what else do we have to look forward to in 2021? Actually, let's kind of take a step back. We saw the fire in Strumica the other day in the, what's the mall? Global. Yeah, which was built during the time of Zoran Zaev when he was the mayor there and presided over. And as we were talking a lot earlier before we started recording, this is so it was a fire, gutted the lower section of the mall, damage, of course, the upper section, etc. So a lot of small businesses have lost their livelihood, unfortunately. Zaev is going to has vowed to rebuild it with taxpayer money, but it's, as we were talking earlier, it's kind of a metaphor. It's for Zoran Zaev and his regime. This happened on the 2nd of January or
what's now?
3rd.
What's
Today's
the
the 4th.
Oh god, yeah,
2 days ago, something like that. So it's brand new year, and this is what happens. And is it a metaphor for what's going to happen to Zoran Zaev and his regime in 2021? Is it going to go up in flames, or can we expect something better as we tackle this new year?
Well, Zaev's Nordonia project going up in flames will be better.
Nordonia, I haven't heard that in a while.
Yeah, like metaphor-wise, it would be like I don't know, like a signature building of Gruevski's Skopje 2014 project going up in flames because it was they skirted safety requirements, etc.
Ah, yes, there's that.
I mean, this is SDSM insisted for years that they campaigned almost exclusively on Gruevski's builds in downtown Skopje. They rejoiced whenever a piece of the facade would peel off here or there, insisting they're badly built, on top of being, according to them, against brutalism architecture norms and historically and politically not according to their socialist progressive values because they're neoclassical.
Right.
And meanwhile, Zaev was a mayor of a prosperous farm city in Macedonia's southeast, and he staked a lot on the fact that Strumica is a growing city, one of the few in the country. That's a unique position with two borders close by and a very fertile valley. And Global was supposed to be the centerpiece of his Strumica, of what he built in Strumica. He was charged with gross corruption over it because he took the land in downtown Strumica from several families who owned it before communism, who were supposed to take it back under the laws we passed after communism for restitution. He, swindled the families out of their inheritance. Then as mayor, he signed a contract with a businessman who he was, in the meantime, doing business with. Zaev had food packaging companies and stuff like that, bricks, construction materials businesses. So one of his business partners, he signed a contract with him to build a huge shopping mall on this land. And then, similarly to what we just discussed about the pipeline, he hugely undervalued the value of the land, which is what the municipality was giving into the deal, meaning that a much greater share of the business deal of the built mall ended up owned by the businessman. So he practically, he gave away the land for peanuts, which, he was just managing, wasn't owning, and then controlled de facto through a crony a shopping mall which was built on this land. So he was charged for undervaluing the land, and I think another problem was there was a no bid contract, so he didn't really entertain maybe better offers for this land. And he was famously arrested and then pardoned by President Crvenkovski.
That's the famous picture of him in handcuffs, right?
Exactly. And since then, obviously, it was known as Zaev's shopping mall, and now it's burnt to a crisp. It was a huge fire. Turns out there were no sprinklers at all, and then turns out that the fire hydrants inside, which would have helped, the fire teams as they were going in, like plug inside, that they didn't work, and that the teams didn't have, like, even if they had water in them, they didn't have. There was a mismatch between the sockets, and So the morning, what was it? So on the first, actually, Zaev took his son, healthcare minister Venko Filipče and Filipče's son. They were, how Zaev loves this quads, ATVs, all-terrain vehicles driving around mountains. So the four of them were driving on top of Mount Velasica over Strumica, and they were like these rich kids, nouveau riche people driving these expensive like all-terrain stuff, getting their kicks. And then the next day in the evening, we see in Zaev's Strumitsa, where he managed the city, we have this rickety, broken up fire trucks, unable even to get close to the shopping mall because, of congestion. And then they don't have the proper equipment because he didn't invest as mayor, and then the successive mayors were also Zaev's, lieutenants. They didn't invest in the proper fire hydrants and the proper, equipment for the firefighting team. And in his own shopping mall, turns out it's built, completely not up to standard. So huge damage. Fortunately, nobody killed, but dozens of stores destroyed. It's probably gonna remain standing, even though somebody was saying maybe he's clearing it up to plant more marijuana in its place. But it's probably gonna remain standing. But it's gonna take extensive renovation. And now he goes there and he says, we need to show solidarity with his corrupt business venture, and we need to rebuild it. So now they're talking about people donating literally to Zaev's shopping mall in Strumitsa. And, obviously under the guise of let's help the families who have businesses there, everybody's for it. But as I explained, there's a very long, extensive history of corruption around this deal. And now, as we're seeing, complete incompetence on the part of Zaev as mayor. And in the end, it's very likely it's going to end up like with something similar to the Mac Petrol deal. We're going to pay for it, maybe buy it out of the state budget, or just give money to the owners, but especially to to the shop owners, but especially to the whoever local cronies have allowed in the end, had in the end up as the nominal owner of the shopping mall. Instead, it's going to be money siphoned directly into Zaev's pockets.
Right. Interesting. Well, as we look forward to 2021, we talked about marijuana, Bulgaria, a couple of other things that we've got, and whether or not this actually is a metaphor for the Zaev regime going forward in 2021. Still on the agenda, we've got the census in April. We've got the local elections in September or October, I believe. October, okay. And then, of course, throughout all of this, we still have this ongoing pandemic and the rollout of the vaccine around the world, or vaccines, I should say. There's several different competing vaccines out there. Macedonia, as I understand it, is not going to get any vaccines until February, and even then a very small number. And I don't know which ones those are. If those are Moderna, Pfizer, Sputnik, or one of the others, AstraZeneca. But it's going to be a while before you can get 2 million people vaccinated, assuming they all want to get vaccinated, or maybe there's going to be a requirement that they do get vaccinated. And so that's not going to be until later this summer, maybe late summer, who knows?
Yeah.
And then you've got a census in April scheduled for April, and there's all kinds of problems with that already. I understand it that the government is saying it's not going to follow all the guidelines set forward by Eurostat, which creates the framework for the way a census should be conducted in a European country. The government's not going to do that.
In the category, as I've said in the parliament, one of the things was Vimero proposed, let's have fingerprints. So it does two things. It's going to help count one person multiple times, and then it's going to help, because there's also a fingerprint database with the passports and the identity cards. So we are actually collecting this.
So you're already doing
Yeah.
Okay, interesting.
And it's going to help compare it, and we're going to know who are citizens, who are residents. So the citizens have deposited a fingerprint. We're going to know who is not a citizen but is a resident. And Zaev said, but then how are we going to count the immigrants in the census? And it was like, well, we're not supposed to count them. But the whole part of the census is that Zaev insists that we count all the immigrants, which are a large portion of them disproportionately are ethnic Albanians. Albanians insist that they're counted as residents, even though they live in Germany or Switzerland for a very long time. And he gave away the game. He said, well, how are we going to count the immigrants?
Right.
Yeah, you're not supposed to.
Exactly. Well, and So what is the is there a date set for the census, or is it just throughout the month of April?
Yeah, April sometime. Did I say 15? I don't know. I get mixed up.
Yeah.
April sometime. No, actually, wait. Sorry, they still haven't adopted the law for this officially,
okay.
but yeah, it's going to be in April, and the main point will be to have as many Albanians listed as possible, because even though they have a higher birth rate, but also much higher immigration rate, so they insist that they are at least 25% of the population, as they were counted in 2002, which was the last census, and this is why it's going to be a worthless exercise in just counting immigrants over Skype.
Well, so we can expect the census to be just like everything else under Zaev's regime, failing, flailing, etc.
Yeah.
As we look further ahead, and again, that's going to be conducted during the China virus. Of course, we just had a census conducted during the China virus, and a lot of it was just online. I filled out my 10 questions online and sent it in, and then I think I got actual snail mail from the government saying, if you haven't done it, we need you to do it. I know I had at least one census worker knock on my door because the house next to me was vacant at the time, and they wanted to know, if there was anybody living there or whatnot.
Yeah.
So anyway, they had this, but obviously this is a different issue than what you have here in Macedonia, especially with the ethnic angle from the largest of the minority groups that is here and their demands. But beyond that, then we go to October, September, October, the local elections. Maybe that's just too far out to even project and talk about right now. So, any thoughts on that?
I mean, the parties are gearing up. They're preparing candidates. You can tell SDSM is, which they won overwhelmingly the last elections with a lot of fraud and abuse of the. It was shortly after they grabbed power, so they were using both the judiciary and the police extensively. They're having some of the more disloyal mayors, like the mayor of Kumanov or Centar, which did not sign up to Zaev's policy with Bulgaria to give up on the parties, communist and partisan legacy. So they may be removed. Vimera avoided the Stip election, which of course, Zaev was going to focus all the money in this one city, and he was going to win. So Vimera said we're boycotting this because of the coronavirus, which was raging at the time. It has kind of reduced a little bit at the moment, but still not sure how it's going. So we don't have a proper test of strength. Levica has been boisterous. There was a poll on Telma, which you can't trust. I mean, it was published on the day of this 33 million transfer to the parent company. It had SDSM and Vimera tied, which again, given SDSM's much larger share of ethnic coalitions with Albanians, with Roma, still means that Vimera is winning, is beating SDSM, but not even if you can trust the poll, it's not by good enough margin. And then it showed Levica growing. Maybe this was the purpose of the poll, to send this type of a message. And then Zaev was actually arguing in parliament, spreading this theory that which is you're supposed to spread through intermediaries, not through himself directly. But again, he was, shit, Zaev says in parliament. He said, well, maybe I'm supporting Levica financially, and maybe they ask me to support them, so they steal the nationalist vote from Vimera, because they're, very nationalist in the name.
Sure.
There is another logic that they may be taking some of the SDSM voters who are unhappy, as he said, with the Bulgaria stuff, but not eager to vote for Vimera, but could, because, Levica was born out of the colored revolution. It was this type of people, SDSM voters who are kind of hot-headed, idealistic, and not just, give them money and vote for that. So there is a good enough theory that they're stealing votes from both sides. And then for a few days, we had an argument who they're actually working for, if they're not working for themselves. Are they harming Vimera to help Zaev, or harming Zaev to help Vimera? And it will depend to some extent who they line up with for the local elections, what kind of arrangement there will be if they line up with Vimera, and if they can translate their votes, and if we can even trust the poll. They're going to ask for a large price for this, but then they're going to they could, in this case, Vimera would easily win practically every municipality. It's more likely that Vomero does a coalition with the Albanian opposition parties because here there is no coalition. So Albanian parties help Vomero win Skopje, while Vomero helps Alternative and Alliance for Albanians win Tetovo and Gostier. This is the deal. And then there is the thorny issue of Struga and Kičava.
Right.
If Vomero can negotiate with them to get at least one of these for a Macedonian mayor and help them win the other. So Sela from the Alliance of Albanians, he's from Struga, so maybe he would insist, Vomero have their voters vote for Sela's candidate in Struga, while Sela supports a Macedonian candidate in Kičava. It could be, a good deal to be had, and then even without involving Levice, it would mean that Vomero, sweeps the entire country and possibly can force an early election. But, a lot of things can happen until then. Zaev is collapsing in Bulgaria. He's collapsing on the vaccines. You said a pitiful amount of 6,000 vaccines in February, maybe. By then, all neighboring countries are vaccinating except for Albania and Kosovo, but they said they're in advanced talks. The Russian embassy said that Zaev refused the Sputnik vaccine, and he's not getting Pfizer vaccines through direct negotiations anytime soon or in any quantity. And he applied to this World Health Organization scheme. And here, through this scheme, apparently we're told, we'll clue you in, but you all get the Sputnik. So he refused an earlier Sputnik vaccine to get it later.
Right.
So he's collapsing on this front, and then we'll see how the economy does by then, and that's going to be.
Yeah, well, it's not going to do any better. The world, as a whole, the world is still, suffering from the China virus. China is the only economy really that grew in 2020, 8.4%, where everybody else is, contracted. Yep. And here I don't know what the numbers are, but it's going to be difficult to dig out.
-4, -5 here.
Yeah, okay. It's going to be very difficult to dig out of that hole in 2021. No foreign direct investments coming in. None has come in for a long time. And yet somehow he still manages to cling to power, which baffles me. And again, going back to the way we started this, why am I here? What's my purpose? And it's kind of to take the pulse, talk to people, and try and figure out what's going on and how long this corrupt individual is going to be in power, and why he's still in power, and why the people don't rise up and throw him out. It's happened in other places. I don't know what the attraction is, and maybe it's just I don't think he's a very smart politician in terms of a tactician, but for some reason he just manages to hold on. Maybe that speaks to the weakness of the opposition, perhaps. I don't know.
Well, listen, there was this complete abuse of the police and the judiciary with the complete complicity and even incitement on the part of the US and the EU diplomats here. So basically, it's easy when you can arrest the opposition and the country with the highest percentage of members of parliament arrested this side of the Amur-Darya River and the Caspian Sea. Even now, Zaev has incorporated the most criminal elements of Vomero, the Mialkov faction, which is actually gaining in criminality under him through the deals they're having. So, but is apparently cutting deals with the embassies as well, because the embassies still want to see Prespatru and possibly even some deal with Bulgaria. So they're being lavishly funded through criminal deals to splinter the opposition. But there are pretty significant people in the last Gruevski government who are now openly working with Zaev, like Nikola Todorov and Mialkov. There were none closer to Gruevski than these people. Factions like the smaller parties, which for a few small investment can, steal some votes from you. Zaev has the ethnic minority vote, we had this ridiculous low turnout for the Corona elections. The embassy insisted. This was the last intervention by the embassy, by Ambassador Burns, to have the elections as soon as possible, June, July. Low turnout, they should shape like 10%, I think, of the turnout.
Oh, yeah.
And, that's about it. I mean, this is... it is what it is. We'll see how the U.S. Lines up, and then we'll see how the U.S. Acts with regard to this part of the world, how quickly they will move with new colored revolutions against Slovenia, Hungary, Poland, which are in the crosshairs.
True.
Zaev is offering to have some role to play in this. Obviously, he's offering this to be the staging ground for a colored revolution against Serbia. We'll see then if this will be his usefulness, like staging ground for corrupt American diplomats and businessmen who would, for money laundering, which will be used to bring down Vucic, if this is a policy priority in the Biden administration. And then we'll see, what happens next.
I do have a theory. You mentioned the Biden administration and corruption, two things that go together, actually. But
even before it's been installed, which is very
exactly, yeah.
Impressive.
But just on that, maybe we can kind of wrap up with kind of this broader discussion. Although I do want to say one thing about just the tiniest bit of hope. We'll end on that note, which is always good. But with the incoming Biden administration, Biden is, of course, he's 78 years old. He's not in good health. He's not all there. He has cognitive issues. Kamala Harris is very ambitious. She obviously wanted to be president because she ran for president, but fizzled out. But the whole Hunter Biden, and not just Hunter Biden, but Jim Biden. Jim Biden is Joe Biden's brother. And the whole issue with the not just Ukraine, but China as well. And of course, Joe Biden has said that China is not an enemy, but they're a competitor, which that's not true. They're both. And so I could see if Joe Biden doesn't physically collapse, in the first year or so, I can see where Kamala's team and the radical left in the Democrat Party, which is growing, try and use some of these scandals that Hunter and his uncle Jim were involved in, and that as that information slowly drips out, the party elders, the Pelosi and Schumer and all that coming to him and saying, this isn't good for the party.
Yeah.
And, we thank you for doing what you were hired to do, which was to beat Donald Trump. And now it's time to step down, and we thank you for your service. And you get Secret Service protection for life in an office and all that. And now at 78, 79 years old, it's time for you to go spend some time with your family. And then, and that's that. And then you've got a whole new energized base within the Democrat Party that is super radical, committed very much to the principles of progressivism, leftism, even socialism, and we'll be pushing that in concert with culture, Hollywood, big business, big tech, although that goes both ways on big tech, academia, the NGOs, etc. So none of that is good for the United States or the West or Macedonia or anybody else, but I just think that's kind of the direction we're all going. Any thoughts on that before?
Yeah, maybe it's even better they win on Tuesday, grab the Senate, and then they overreach sooner.
Yeah.
Adopt some horrible domestic policy. I don't know.
First day, executive orders.
Yeah. But if they have the Senate, they can do something. There is no excuse for them not to do anything crazy.
Right.
And then, you can reverse it by 2022, by the midterms. Except that, you would still have this would be the best case scenario maybe for the U.S. domestically, but for us here, they would still have control over the State Department and the White House, and not that they didn't have control over the foreign policy. This type of people through the Trump term, we didn't really see a Trump foreign policy here, at least.
No, it's all dictated by the State Department, which is forever of one mind.
Yeah, if Philip Rieker was a Trumpkin, then please. Give me more Obama and Hillary. They would remain, the type of corruption we saw about Hunter is very typical to what we saw here. The embassy appoints a prosecutor. In a bigger country, it goes all the way up to the vice president and president. And then they get corrupt deals like Stevenson and Bailey here for their children and their idiot drug.
I haven't heard Stevenson's name in a long time.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
This is the what they've been doing to Ukraine, they've been doing to us. I mean, this is on a much lesser scale, and I don't know if it was this brazen and open in Ukraine as well, but it wasn't America's finest moment.
No,
in the region, honestly, and
well, the U.S. is a Republican decline,
yeah,
as is the West in general. But
yeah, crap! I can't learn Chinese at this too old.
Oh yeah.
Well, I think Russian.
There you go. There's that. Is like in the Douglas Murray, the British author and historian, having a conversation with Joe Rogan in their podcast.
Yeah.
And Joe had just moved to Texas, and Joe said, well, the reason I moved here is that I get at least 3 more months before it all collapses. So, but eventually it all collapses. So.
I can have a few episodes in which I say, "Told you so." Which this is what this podcast is all about. Essentially, I mean, we told people so, and it's actually coming true spectacularly. Mm. Imagine if we were really an honestly welcomed and respected member of NATO and advanced in our EU accession talks by now with vaccines galore and investments. Everything that the embassy said would happen. It would just change the name, and then all this land of richness will be open. And look at this. I mean, we are auditioning for Colombia in the Balkans and ethnic strife and criminal deals all over. The mall burns down, and you're not sure if Zaev is doing a real estate, an insurance scam, or if he crossed the wrong criminal in the region, or if he's just plain incompetent and stupid.
Or all of the above.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Or if he crossed a neighboring country. Several possible explanations at once. So this is how it's going, and it's going great if you're in that frame of mind. If you told people, don't do this, it's going to end up badly.
Yeah. Well, I think it was Solzhenitsyn, others have said it, but I think Solzhenitsyn says it the best, and I can't remember the exact quote, that basically everybody just has to learn on their own the hard way through experience and failure, trial and error, and a lot of failure. And it doesn't matter how much you tell people that this is what's going to happen. They're still not going to listen to you and have to go through it and fail and move on and either learn or not learn from their failures.
And you get to do the Nelson laugh in their faces and get ha ha.
Well, the only hope I've got right now, and this is just preliminary based on a few days here in Macedonia, and that is thinking that it's going to have to be up to the Macedonian people just to kind of buck up and stand up and take control. And it starts with the individual and the family, and then goes out from there and rebuilding institutions that have collapsed over the past 3 years or longer. Of course, you never really escape the hangover of communism. So, but that's what I'm thinking right now. I'll assess this all later, but that's what it's going to take. And of course, you have to want it.
Yeah,
you have to want it.
Yeah.
If you don't want it, if you're just happy with your little fiefdom, and whatnot, then oh well.
Well, we'll be cluing in next week with insights and analysis of all the questions we've raised now.
Well, we'll certainly know more about the U.S., and then we can apply that. And Christmas will be over, and people will be thinking about getting back into work and school earnestly. And yeah.
But the year is off to quite a start.
It is. It is. It's. Although, let me just end on this. As I mentioned earlier, I did I think it was January 2, a hike up Vodno, which I always like doing. And it was clear. There's clouds, but it was clear and sunny, for the most part. 360-degree view, the snow-capped mountains, and it was gorgeous.
Yeah.
And it was just, wow, this is just something. This is spectacular. This is beautiful. And so there is hope. There's always hope.